So hello everybody, I am going to do the start, how to get going on the Felis 747-200 Classic. I'm at Los Angeles LAX airport. It's now Sunday, December 29th. I'm using a United Colors, the tricolor. Even though the airline I've never flown, I think the colors are gorgeous and I really like this one. So I'll be flying from Los Angeles to Miami International and showing you how to get this crazy little beast started, because it's definitely a challenge for a first timer. And when I saw how challenging it was trying to do it with the instructions provided, it just wasn't enough, and I decided to get a video going. My first attempt was actually in May, but didn't quite work out the way I wanted it. I also had a real-world professional pilot and engineer, flight engineer, check it out, and there were a few things I needed to do differently. Finally got around to doing it 7 months later, actually almost 8 now. So here we go. This is a plane that is in many ways very different than the 747-400, or for that matter the 737-800, like the Zibo that you might be used to flying, or any of the Airbus A320X, A340 that you might have flown from Tolis, and so forth. The main reason? Well, one of it is, probably the main reason is right there, you're looking at it. The engineering section, the engineers panel, station is more like it. This plane is a 3-person cockpit, not 2. And as you can see, everything's analog, and it has the precursor to the FMC that we're used to, or the MCDU, as the Airbus calls it. It's this. I'm using, by the way, the LTN92 flight computer, not the CIV. Personally, the CIV I've learned how to use. However, I think it might have possibly driven pilots to their limits of patience, because you have to put you can only take 9 points, waypoints, in one shot. Sure, there are workarounds around that, but I decided to go with this. It's a lot more user-friendly also. So here we go. We're going to start right from cold and dark, and this video will go right up to the point where I've taxied onto the runway and am ready for takeoff, at which point the video will end. Just a warning, if you need a sequel, you'll have to stay tuned. No, I don't know when I'll do a sequel, but some of the other parts of flight are quite good, and I've had some challenges with respect to the autopilot here, but as in the flight computer, I mean, not the autopilot itself. Actually, even the autopilot works very differently than the 747-400, or the Airbuses for that matter, any of the Airbuses. Okay, so we're at gate 54A. I have my flight plan made and flight sim brief already. 54A, Los Angeles Airport. That's the typical structure you would see when you want to identify it. Los Angeles Airport is the signature structure. Okay, so here we go. First things first. First, we go to the electronic flight board. The electronic thingy there, the good old tablet. And once you have your flight plan, whoops, not this one, you will be bringing up your SimBrief flight planner report. First things first, the very first thing is this thing doesn't have chocks set by default. Not really sure why. You'd think a plane was stuck with chocks under its wheels, but maybe they decided to do that because of other reasons. Like it's just a turnaround, I'm not sure. So, first things, ask ground crew to set chocks. Now, I'm doing this with the battery off and everything, so you won't hear anything. Okay? And when it changes to remove chocks, and you wait about 10 seconds, 15 seconds max, you'll see 3 yellow things appear under the wheels. There we go, 1, 2, 3 chocks. Okay, next step. Connect the ground power, because we are at a major airport, and especially these days, you don't want to waste fuel running the APU. APU, in fact, I'm pretty sure in most airports is not used until you're ready to start the engines, when you're pushing back, before you push back, because then you disconnect yourself from the electrical power at the ground. So turn on the battery. You can close the lid, the cover. I put stand power to normal. We're going to be asking for external power to be connected. So go back here.
Cockpit to ground. Connect ground power.
There it is. This has some nice callouts, this airplane. Wait till they confirm.
Ground power connected.
Okay, now what does that mean? You got a little guy back here. A very brave little guy. Next to a giant of a plane. Connecting two little wires right up your nose. Literally, or slightly behind your nose. So, we got that done. Now, we haven't connected or initialized the systems with the ground power yet. Right now, you are draining battery. See this? DC amps is below 0. Voltage you'll see, but this has to be either at or slightly above 0. Otherwise, it's draining. Now, go to this screen. AC connect. Both yellow lights for external power 1, external power 2 are on. They have to be, because ground power is connected. So, you close the ground power bus. That's it. You don't touch this yet. Believe you, procedure calls you do this when you start the engines. This is not used at this point. Now here's the APU section and starting it. We're not doing that yet. Now we're connected. Now how do you know? Well, see, the battery drain is now what is it? 8 volts plus amps. Sorry, and the external power 1, external power 2 generators are showing positive, as opposed to say APU, which is not connected. These Gen 1, 2, 3, and 4 are for the engines, and that's a generator test. Now, external power 1 and 2, and in fact the other generators always show approximately, within certain tolerance, 400 hertz and 115 AC volts. Okay, that's important. Next step. Again, we're in a modern airport, so since we need air conditioning, which is a good idea, especially in hot cities like Los Angeles, or cold cities where you need heat, you ask them to connect the air conditioning unit, I believe is what that will be called. So connect ACU, you won't hear anything. It'll just get this fellow somewhere. There, that guy appears. Looks like a hamburger mixer, but anyway. Okay, so I'm just kidding. Trying for some bad joke humors, Okay, so that's done. Now, we want to get our air conditioning started, partially. Recirculating fans are just that, just fans that turn on. They're not getting air from anywhere. I turned them all on. The procedures say turn on enough at least for zone 1, which covers the cockpit. I turned them all on. This is the rest of the cabin. The other thing is packs. Trim air we'll use later. Now, this is the air conditioning, just so you can see the temperature control section especially. Okay, this is in Celsius, and that's duct pressure for the 5 different zones. Upper deck, and then zone 1, 2, 3, and 4. I set these slightly below the default position because I find default position is 24 Celsius. And this is just on my personal comfort test that I've done at home too. I think 23 Celsius, which is what this ends up as, is better. But that doesn't matter for you. It's just... Okay, sorry. Let's go back to air conditioning. Okay. As soon as you have power to the plane, you can arm the emergency lights. These are on the cabin. Turn on the nav lights and also the logo, which is for general. General sort of advertisement of the airplane, the logo. And then adjust your lights. Main panel, background, that's below. Overhead panel. Dome is actually, how should I say, it's up here. I don't know if you see dome. Yeah, that's dome. These two are the dome. Okay, so. And also probe heater and window heaters, especially if it's cold outside. Of course, Los Angeles is now 22 degrees approximately, so it's not exactly cold. But if any of you remember from your, if you're users of the Zibo 737-800, you know that in cold places where it's well below freezing, if you don't turn on the window heat within a few minutes, you're gonna have just fog and white windows. You can't see anything through it, and you think there's something wrong with the sim. There's nothing wrong with the sim. The windows are just frozen over or fogged up because you haven't turned on window heat. This is a similar idea, I would say, but okay. So everything's okay for now for the overhead. Let's get our lights adjusted here on the panel, front panel. There are two of them, but this one's already, the little one's already turned up. They both turn, just so you know. This is the center panel, or lower center panel, I think it's called. This is the altimeter. Let's check what our altimeter setting should be. By the way, I am using Xenviro. I'm back to using that again because it just is the best when it comes to cloud and light simulation and weather simulation. Just to show you what happened, I was flying with this plane. I've flown this plane since I bought it in, I think, around March. I've flown it like at least 20 times. Full missions. Okay, so I know it quite well now. Might be more than 20. I have to check. Let's say about 20, because I took a big break at one point. So KLAX. And what happened, by the way, with good old X-Plane default weather, X-Plane 12.1.2 to be exact, is that I was flying on autopilot uh, using the computers, all programmed, and I've done this before. You're not, of course, you're not even as a simmer supposed to leave your plane unattended and go do something. You can pause the simulation. I'm becoming a little more cocky now, and I'm actually leaving the plane, having lunch or whatever. However, when I came back, the plane had crashed and it was nose down. And I'm pretty sure what happened was, this happens during flight. Sudden changes in the winds and also in the air pressure seems to affect the plane to the point where it loses control, overspeeds, and autopilot at that point, of course, disengages, and the plane is totally out of control. Okay, so what do we have here? Los Angeles, 29th of the day, 29th day of the month, 1936 Zulu. Winds from 260 at 07 knots, 2.5 statute mile visibility, light fog, overcast at 300. Ooh, okay, that's peachy. 1212, which means temperature's 12, but dew point's also 12, which means it's super humid. Weird. Well, it's also cool, but so altimeter is 3016. So 3016. There we go. This is for setting your minimums, and these are two altimeters. That's the main one, and this is the alternate one. So now we're gonna continue our setup here. We've got the radio panel to light up on the central console. The central forward panel, this controls it, which is this, by the way, just so you're aware. Now, first step, planning your loads and total fuel as per the plane. Now, I have the plan in SimBrief, but that's not quite enough. It's not exactly corresponding to what the Felis plane calculates. This is the SimBrief plan. Pax, passengers, 325. Cargo is 27.9. Now this includes passenger suitcase weight. My cargo alone is 10,000 pounds. Okay, so that's what I'll be putting. fuel amount calculated, takeoff weight, landing weight, etc. Okay, so cargo 10,000. It's not much, I know, but I'm not going to carry large amounts of cargo for such short flights. It would have a problem with the landing weight being too high, because you're not burning enough fuel by the time you arrive at your destination, and you won't be able to land safely. You can. Okay, so there it is, 10,000 pounds. Passengers, I'm gonna do like I've done recently, maximum on upper deck cabin and cabin 1. And let's see, what else? We're adding the passengers, 100. $99. Make sure it goes up to 325. I just picked this number as a decent number. It's not full. Okay, now, other stuff. Very important here, so that it gives you an accurate reading. What do you have? You have destination distance. Ground distance, 2086, so about 2100. This only goes in increments of 50, yeah? You know, it's not 1, so 2100. Desired flight level, same as last time. We're going to go up eventually to 370, and in fact 390, I think, but flight level 390, 370. Tailwind, because that'll reduce fuel consumption. That's what it's doing, instead of having headwind. So average wind component, average WC, plus 0.56. Oh, we're doing well in the past few days. I've been flying this route a couple of times to practice for this video. So 50 is okay. We'll make it 50. I'm not going to go to 60. I'm a little conservative on fuel. Alternate distance, alternate airport distance. Orlando, 206. Taxi fuel is always what I've had, is 35 to 40 minutes. In this case, 40, because they're two very big airports. So I'm giving myself 20 minutes to taxi. By the way, I don't use any AI aircraft, so you'll see an empty airport. Don't mind me, but I don't want anything reducing the frame rates. I know there are at least 2 big traffic programs I can use, but right now I haven't really had the motivation to try them. I'd have to get a better CPU. By the way, my system specs, just so you know, is CPU is an AMD 5800 X3D Ryzen, which is technically the weak point, though it's no slouch, believe me. If you edit videos, it's mighty fast. And it's just with flight simulation, it's not. They're always getting better, the CPUs anyway. The graphics card has been recently updated. It's NVIDIA, used to have an AMD. NVIDIA RTX 4070 Ti Super, so 16 gigs of VRAM, so I can properly do 4K video, 4K resolution playing without having it swap or do funny things on you and slow it down. Let's see. Okay, so that is done, and we're going to go and start loading our cargo and ready to refuel. No smoking light should be on before you refuel. Very important. In fact, you can probably turn it on as soon as you board the aircraft. And we'll get to these tests afterwards on the overhead panel. First, so we're going to be loading cargo first, and also the catering trucks have to come and start loading the food. Now, this is the cockpit door. Just so you know, on a 747-200, and I believe the others as well, the cockpit's on the 2nd floor. Now, I don't know about the 400 and Dash 8. I thought they were on the 1st floor, but I could be wrong. I don't remember right now as a passenger. So I open the door. I'll be greeting the passengers when they come in, you know, tripping them and stuff like that, putting bananas under their feet. Sorry, I'm in a kind of a silly mood today. It's relaxed, December 29th kind of day, before the New Year's. And okay, so yeah, now we have, when you get to the payload screen from the EFB. You have calculated packs and calculated zero fuel weight. It's a use load sheet data for how many you want to board. You can enter these manually if you want. See, I'm just going to say use load sheet data. You just click on it. 325 packs, 10,000 cargo. Okay, so we're going to have first the cargo to load, but first, if you want to be realistic, open your cargo doors. There we go. There we go. Yeah. Now, this is something interesting I'm not too clear about, honestly. This guy, some people have mentioned that you have to turn the electric hydraulic pump on to be able to open the cargo doors. I'm not so sure because I looked at the actual real-life manual of the 747-200 and it doesn't say anything about that. This only is needed to use the foot brakes. Not the parking brake, but the foot brakes. Cargo doors open manually, so it doesn't look like you need this electric hydraulic pump. So I'm going to close it, just so you're aware. By the way, the lights of the engineering panel should also be adjusted, as well as the circuit breaker panels. Circuit breaker, by the way, is quite a sight. They are right up here. Here and here. These are all circuits, fuses basically, just so you're aware. Yeah. Okay, now, so cargo's loading. When it loads, the doors just automatically close. It's just set up like that. You can see it loading when you click load. There it goes. Now let's open our catering doors also, so the caterers don't get all upset. Opening the first and the rear door, almost rear, and the upper right door, which is this fellow here. That guy, upper, lower front, lower back on the right for the galleys. Yeah, Los Angeles is definitely very fuzzy today. Okay, while that's going on, we'll turn on our radio master bus. And then our INS system. They're kind of not terribly noticeable like they are in the newer versions of the Jumbo. It's these three guys. Inertial navigation system. 1, 2. The two ends are turned on first, left and right, and then the center. It's just the way they prefer to have them aligned, I believe. Next one. We'll do our tests here. We'll start with one last thing, sorry. Hold on. When we turn the INS on, it wants us to insert the present position. Here are the two of them, 1 and 2, pilot side, co-pilot side, or first officer side, and the third one down below. Clear to continue on all three and asking for position. Okay. As with all the jumbos and all the planes, really, you always enter your current position there. We can do that manually, latitude, longitude, accessioning, or location ID. But what we're going to do is we go here. They made it easy, Felis. Insert present position. 33.56.47 north, 118.24.22 west. Just click on it. You won't see anything happening there. But if you go here, position's inserted. Okay, now it's going to start aligning. How do you check on it? Status button. Align, it shows a code, 60. Time left, 8.5 minutes. Action none. That's how you see it. Okay. So once the INSs are aligning, we can now go to our tests. First, let's say the stall warning, starting from the top. Mach overspeed warning, over rotation, as in bank angle. And also make sure the hydraulic power switches are turned on and the spoilers. While the things are aligning, I'm gonna do some more tests on the front panel. PTT, so the instrument display, the navigation and autopilot mode display, auto throttle as well. Navigation to navigation modes and so forth. Inertial navigation system is what these are called. They're the precursors to the FMCs. They can do course changes and stuff, but to reprogram it takes quite a bit of time. You can't just insert and so forth. It just doesn't work, that I'm aware of anyway. INS is set to 1 on the pilot side, or the pilot flying side, and 2 on the pilot monitoring side, in this case the first officer. Compass set to 1, 2 on the co-pilot side, first officer side, and a few more tests here. Now there's ground proximity tests, the warnings, the audio warnings.
Pull up, glide slope, glide slope, pull up, glide slope, glide slope.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to hold this for it to go with the pull up. You can't just click and leave. So press and hold ground proximity. Rudder ratio test. It's simply a press and hold. You see a light go on here. I'll do it one more time. That one there. Altitude alert. Now, for this you have to have your right altimeter setting, which we should by now. KLAX. It's 3016, hasn't changed. Okay. So, what you do, you set this to the airport altitude, which from charts is 120 feet or so. Not this. Okay. Oh. You can see from the LA charts. ILS chart shows it the best, really, because it shows the average airport altitude. Yeah, it's right here. Airport elevation, tower elevation, 128. Touchdown zone elevation for runway 24 left is 23 feet. 123 feet, excuse me. Okay, so 100, because this is also increments of 100. It's not tens or anything, so I'm going to put it to 100. And once you press this button, altitude alert test, it'll stay depressed. You might be able to see that. See, it stays depressed. And then you just move this and you'll hear a horn or an alert. That's it. That's how you know it's working. These are the markers. They will technically go on if you've set yourself to be warned about markers. I'm not, so. Make sure your parking brake's set here, very important. Just to check on the progress of the alignment of the 3 navigation computers. You can see here, time left 2.7 minutes. So we're getting there. Now we can certainly start our refueling also. Now, refueling. Fuel on board, it shows what's from a previous flight, 27,314 pounds. Calculated fuel was 130,893. So, I'm going to say use load sheet data. I'm going to go a little higher, 131,314, just in case. And you just call tanker to add, drain this amount. It's going to add. Just click it and it'll start adding the fuel. This takes a bit of time, so it's good that you do this as soon as possible. One other thing, always go in the electronic flight board, which, by the way, just so you see where it is in case you're new to this kind of plane. One on this side and one on that side. I have views set, so they're all nice and easy. Go to failures page in the service, so that you see there are no failures. Now, I haven't enabled failures. There are options here, by the way. I haven't enabled them, so it should not have any, but sometimes you do because of some problems you've had. It's happened to me once or twice, so don't forget that. You can see the refueling in progress here. While we wait, we can go and do some tests on the engineering panel as well. Up on top, you have a squib test for the APU, fire test. Now, you also have to test both at the same time. You would normally flick these switches up with your fingers. Here's how you do. You see this little thing changes to a tiny double arrow? It does both. Fault test, 1, and then 2, and then again double arrow on the bottom with your mouse cursor. Oxygen, passenger oxygen should be normal, not on. On is when you actually use it and they need oxygen. Okay, galley buses should be on. Lavatory and chiller. Galley lavatory fan on. Chiller is most likely, well, they call it chiller, but it's kind of like basically a refrigerator of some sorts. Okay. This is, for the most part, the air conditioning panel. There's more tests here. Squib test. Smoke test, equipment cooling. Blower selector test. Valve control should be normal. Aft cargo heat test. And I can probably turn that on now. Now, lower cargo fire protection, very important. Test A, test B, and both. Squib test for fire extinguisher. This is also cargo. Electro hydraulic pumps closed. Brake select. Primary system. This is off. For fuel, we don't touch this yet. We'll get to that afterwards. This is the hydraulic panel. Right now they stay off. Brake temperature monitor. Test. I'm not sure if you can do this, but I started cheating on this, so to speak. You press the test button, it stays down, and you just press each one of these and they're up. But anyway, that may not be the way it's done in real life, so. Lamp test, this is just the FDAR's portion. Brightness adjustment adjusts really just the red LEDs there, or LCDs. Anti-skid for the brakes and wheels, we'll be turning that on later. Potable water, drinking water. Press to read, shows full. By the way, this always shows full, even at the end of the flight zone. I don't think it's really simulated. Primary test for the anti-skid. Landing gear tilt inputs. Alternate test. Crew call doesn't do anything. Landing gear lights test. Doors. And one of the most important parts actually is this guy, fuel jettison panel. These should all be closed, off. Otherwise you're dumping fuel. That's used because of emergencies where you have to land right away, or you have to land after some point after takeoff, but you're still too heavy and you have to unfortunately dump fuel onto people's heads. Or of course if it's Godzilla that has to be waiting there, he won't like it, trust me. Anyway, okay. Okay, so nav code 1, time 00. They have aligned. Now we can enter our waypoints. Now I'm not going to show you every single waypoint here, but basically enter them by name, okay, based on your flight plan. One at a time. There's no way to transfer. At least I don't use that method. If there is one, that's great, but I don't really use it. Open flight plan. Yeah, I tried this once and I couldn't get it to work, but I'm used to entering the waypoints by one at a time. It takes time, but that's how the pilots did it really in real life. So here we go. I'm not going to show you everything about this. Maybe one day I might do a video, but there are some good videos on these LTN 92s. There's also a manual, although I wouldn't mind trying to do a good video also where people don't talk too fast. So P is always your current position, wherever that might be. In this case, it's the airport, waypoint 00. That's typically your parked at the gate position. You enter it only here, and then you transfer it or copy it over to the others. You don't have to enter it for all three. That would be crazy. Yeah. So, open our flight plan. And it starts right here. I do it literally from the map at Navigraph charts. By the way, I do not use AVS. I do use Xenviro for the weather because it simulates weather much better. As I said, the clouds too. So I'm going to enter this from the map of Navigraph charts. I have to constantly have it to show up because it's in the background. I don't think there's any way to integrate this into the plane, but hopefully one day. But I don't mind. It's pretty easy to do. I just do Alt Tab, and it comes up. So we're starting with DL Ray. Now, before you can do anything here, see, it doesn't enter when you do that. You got to go to here and then AN, alpha or numeric. Alpha is really just the letters, all the letters. N is the numbers plus the functions like up, down arrows, EXP, hold, remote, cat, FPL, CRS, course, etc. Okay, so DL Ray and then any. I'll enter those two. In alpha mode, you see an A here. DLREY. You have to enter the full thing. It's not gonna know. It'll know if it's in the database. Otherwise, it'll say not found or something, and it'll ask you for coordinates. If you typed it correctly, then you can enter coordinates in this format. Okay, so which is fine. I'm used to it. I mean, the problem, of course, is when you're asked to go to a alternate runway and stuff. Forget about programming because you won't have time. You'd have to just use manual autopilot inputs or fly the plane manually if ATC asks you if you're flying online, for example. So any is the next one. Nancy. By the way, to enter a point manually, you can create a point here and then basically enter its coordinates. I'm not going to really do that because I had a different kind of departure from LAS before and I had to do that. I'll show you just so you know. You see, this is my waypoint. McGee, it actually is this, or McGee, I typed it wrong. McGee for Orca 5 departure. So if you click on this, you can't add this to your route for the Navigraph because it's the SID is integral. It won't let you add anything to the SID. It'll ask you before and after would be after the last point on the departure or the arrival. I'm gonna add a top of descent point later, which I'll show you when approaching our destination airport. That is done by coordinates. Okay, next one is Hey Nick. Hey NK. And so forth. I'm going to enter all these and come back to you later to show you some other stuff near the end of the route, like how to enter a manual point, which you'll see as an example. Okay. Just want to show you something here. I entered a point called BLH from the flight plan. This guy here. And it brought up this window. S1 of 2. It could be 1 of 4, 1 of 6. That means there's another BLH in the database of the computer in the AIRAC, which is for the whole planet, more or less, with the same name. So it's asking me to confirm which one. To change to the second one, this says USA, okay? You click one of the arrows. See, this is Kazakhstan, so we want the one for USA. Sometimes, on rare occasions, I've seen one case anyway where they're both in the same country, or there's 3 and 2 are in the same country, for example. So you have to make sure from the coordinates which one you're picking. Make sure you have the right one, otherwise the plane will definitely go off course. Also, while we're programming the flight points into the computer, I want to also start loading the passengers. Should have done earlier. Now let's close the doors on the right side, which they're usually closed when passengers start boarding. The galleys are loaded, I noticed. So open 1 left, 2 left, and the upper left, which is, since this thing has an upper deck, 1 left, 2 left, and that's the upper left right there. Okay, so they're gonna start boarding now. Go to Payload again and click on board. You'll see 0 packs here. It starts changing. There it goes. This takes a while, so it's good that you start this earlier. It's about, I would say, 1 passenger a second or so, maybe a little slower. So it does take a couple, maybe 6-7 minutes or so. Okay, so I'm entering the waypoints, and then I'll come back to you in a couple of minutes. Okay, so I've calculated the top of descent. Actually see it in the flight plan by SimBrief as just after plows, PLOWS, which is right there. Distance left 129, at plows is 144. So I'm going to start descent right after plows. It's about 15 nautical miles, but I'm not worried about that too much. They're pretty close anyway, plows and the next one, which is Matney. So I'm putting literally a point just here, right clicking, not adding to route because it won't let you. Anyway, you'll see. I don't want to do anything now. So this is top of descent, K-MIA, runway 12. Let's just leave it at that. Okay, that's what the point's going to be called. It's a bit long, but it's clear enough, and it's a global point. It'll show up in everything I look at. Okay. Oh, right. I don't have them marked to show. That's why. There we go. See? TOD K-MIA. So right after passing plows and straightening out, I'm going to start my descent. I'm not going to wait any longer. Now, to do that here is the interesting part. I'm just going to call this TOD. Oh, TOD, let's say 12, which is runway 12. Okay, now when you press enter, unless there's a point already by that name, good, so it didn't take it. Let's get the coordinates now, which is directly from Navigraph. You can use Navigraph for taxiing too, you'll see in a minute. It works quite well, honestly. You just have to look around like a real pilot normally would. Those pilots these days actually do have something similar to what we use. I've seen them on their tablets. It shows you how to taxi and turn left and then draws a line and everything, but this is less problem-free. Let's face it, the less add-ons you use for X-Plane, the better. There's no doubt about that. So there you go. That's my point. Coordinates: north 2654, 20.4. This you have round off. You don't have a point there. And 82 west 8225 59.0. So that would be 59. So latitude. First, it's in numerical mode already. It puts you in there automatically. North, you can go back here and get the numbers. 26, 54, 20. 26, 54, 20. 26, 54, 20. North, enter. And then longitude. It's east to west vertical, and that's going to be 82, 25, 59 west, not east. Be careful. West, whoops, 82, 25, 59. 82, 25, 59 west. Enter. EXP to use, clear to reject. It's not enter here, you see. So you have to look at the instructions it gives you. And you've selected, so EXP to use. So you see a Todd 12 there. That's your own point you just added. So that's the way you add your points. Okay, so we finished entering the points. Now we're going to copy the flight plan from the first or primary master INS computer to the other two. You press the RMT button, select this as the master, very important. Do the same for the other two, except select them as slaves. That's number 2, and here's number 3. Press RMT, slave. You can press enter to confirm it, enter, and enter. It's asking you 41 waypoints, clear to return, enter to select, slew to next, so we're gonna do enter. System B and C are ready, that's the other two. Now if you have question marks between next to the B or C and C, then they're not ready. You have to press enter and make sure they're selected as slave. So press enter and it'll start transmitting. In this case there are 41 waypoints, and we'll be transmitting those to the other two systems. There, cross-fill complete. Now, if you click on flight plan, you need to select a track or leg, the first leg in your plan. In this case, it is, let's see it here, Del Rey or DL Rey. Okay, so click on leg. It has to know where you are because you can change this during flight. P is always current position, so from current position to whatever you are, you can change this in flight if the things get unsynchronized for some reason, desynchronized. So DL Ray, DL, and it already fills in the rest because it knows. There. Same thing here, leg, DL Ray. And finally for number 3, excuse me, leg, DL Ray. There we go. Now they will show flight plans. Now you can show flight plan with distance remaining. If you clicked EXP here, it shows you time remaining, ETA and UTC, and distance before waypoint, DBW, and distance to go. We're back to that again. So let's check how the passenger load is going. It's full. All done. We could close these doors. In real life, plane waits a bit maybe, but that's fine, no big deal. Turn on the weather radar to standby. And turn on our radar screen. That's really about it. Once we have all the load, and just compare it against the flight plan to be sure. As you can see, there are slight differences. Zero fuel weight here is 468, 189. Here it's 471. Fuel is 138. I added slightly more fuel here. I believe it's more than that. It's 131. Okay, that's fine. Now, takeoff weight should be 607. Okay. Again, there are discrepancies. I'm not really sure what that is. It's 27. Okay, that's fine. Probably may need to adjust the aircraft specs maybe in SimBrief to have these exact, but that's fine. Now, this is our takeoff performance calculator. If you click here, it's the landing. It says here performance calc takeoff. You click here, performance calc landing, which we'll do it before landing. You can use the load sheet or the sim. Sim shows your current weight. And how do you know? It's right here, 599. It's already entered, by the way, in your fuel gauge. Okay, this is what it is. You want the load sheet because you're burning fuel as you taxi. Okay. Now, let's get back to our calculation for takeoff. Runway length, 24 left, 10,885. No, it's 10,9, be close. Airport elevation, 100 feet. Runway heading, 251. 24 left. 250. Slope, we don't worry about that too much. In real life they do, but I don't really have slope information here, but that's fine, no big deal. Runway condition, again, read data from sim, it shows you the weather. And this is always different from my weather that I use in X-Enviro. No, not anymore, it's not. Okay, A3015, maybe it happens to be same this time. Okay, this is correct. Now, that you don't touch. Flaps. Flaps have to be 20. Important, don't forget this. It's set to 10 by default. Usually do a flaps 20 takeoff. It's just me. Notice it'll take less speed than 10. Okay, now this is the part you have to set. Stab trim 4.3 units. That's the elevator trim. Initial pitch to set on the autopilot flight director, which by the way we can turn on now. Flight director's on. Is here. And you turn this wheel. That yellow guide goes up. That line. As you watch it, 10, 15 is the maximum, even if it shows more, by the way. Okay, you can turn it, but it won't go anywhere. Same thing on the co-pilot side, the first officer. Here we go. It won't go anymore. As you can see, turn, and it's 15. You can't have more than 15 on this plane, as per specs, like autopilot limitations, etc. Okay. Set speed bugs. Now that is a nice little thing, right here. This is the speedometer. This is the Mach. Don't be confused. Showing 0.2 Mach. These are the knots. IAS, indicated airspeed. Okay. These are the bugs. You can move them by hand. But it can set them for you, but it just makes things easier. Normally pilots set this by hand. So when you click, everything else is correct, you double check, click set speed bugs, and bam, see they're set. V1, I believe that's rotate. Flaps 1, flaps, let's see, go to 10, 5, 1, and flaps up. Clean. Should be roughly 230. Yeah, 226. See, flaps 10, 166 shows you what speed to take down or reduce your flaps, etc. Okay, we're pretty much set. Now, the next step would be Passengers are loaded. We're gonna get ready for pushback and start our auxiliary power unit. That's the first thing we gotta do. So, starting the auxiliary power unit. This thing has to run 2 to 3 minutes without load. Without load means you don't connect it to your internal circuits, which is this section here, and you don't turn on its own bleed air for air conditioning until it runs free. Not in a democratic sense, but anyway, for about 2-3 minutes. That's the rule. So I'm going to turn this on. You'll see these lights go on and alternately, as you'll see in a second. Fuel valve opens, APU door opens. You can leave this on a bit and then let go. You can wait a bit longer according to the instructions, but the EGT goes up, exhaust gas temperature in hundreds of degrees Celsius. The RPM percent goes up. This will reach basically 100, and the oil quantity also shows, which it always does. So APU is now running. You can time it if you want, but we have some things we could do in the meantime. Not much left to do, mind you, but we can do that while we wait. Now, bleed air has to be turned on for engines to start, so might as well turn it on now. Isolation pack valves are on. By the way, these, just in case you're not sure, line with line, it's in line. That's off. It's perpendicular. That's the on position or open position. Okay. And same thing with this. It's in line with the lines that are drawn. Okay, that's how I think of it. Nothing yet for the air pumps. The electric hydraulic pump should turn on. We're getting ready for pushback. We should also set our cabin pressurization ultimate altitude, which is 37,000 feet. The actual barometer should be set also for the engineer to see. 30, actually it's 3015 now. Went down by 1. Okay. The weather antenna or traffic antenna, I believe, tilt. I think this is mainly weather radar actually. I just put it about 5 degrees up. Okay. Now, pressurization. This is 3016 for the altimeter. That would be 3015 actually. It went changed to 5. Okay. Fuel pumps. Might as well start turning them on. By the way, you see this? See the pressure lights off here? It's normal. It's not a bug. The APU uses number 2 boost pump. Aft rear, in other words, boost pump. So it automatically turns on. I believe that's true in real life as well. That's the center fuel tank. We don't have that much of a distance, so center is empty. These are the reserves, the 2 yellow ends, and these are the main 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2 is left wing, 3, 4 is right wing. Respectively for engine 1, 2, engine 3, and engine 4. Okay. These are fine. There's nothing to do here at this point. Aft cargo heat is on. This is fine. Double check our lighting. It's good too. You know, the performance calculator shows stab trim of 4.3. Now, you can't do the trim until your air pumps are on. ADP, Alpha David Papa, Alpha Delta Papa, whatever. This won't operate the trim. We're going to set it to 4.3 after we push back and after the engines are started and the air-driven pumps are all on. So it's been already enough time for the APU to run. Now we can connect it. You notice power bus on is lit up because APU is running. Field off, lights go off. Same thing with ground services, off. Now the power on bus light is off. These are still on. AC connect for external power 1 and external power 2. They're yellow because the power cable is still connected. We can now ask them to disconnect the power cable. So we go to ground services and
Cockpit to ground. Disconnect ground power.
lead air on for APU.
Ground power disconnected.
And we definitely don't need the air conditioning unit anymore. Can disconnect ACU. All doors are closed, no greens here. This is red for some reason. It's less than maximum. That's really the only reason. I think it might be like a reminder. If you go to service, aircraft state, 3.48 US quarts, that's good. No problem. But if you're not sure, you can always refill. See, 3.6 is the maximum anyways, so it used it up because APU is running, that's why. So don't worry about that. You can't really fill this in real life while APU started. It's highly unlikely anyway. Okay, so now stay on ground.
Cockpit to ground. Remove the chocks.
I'm asking to remove the chocks. These yellow guys, they will disappear. There. And don't worry about the engines. Look like they're turning. They're just sort of simulated to turn a bit when it's windy. I think that's all. The engines haven't started yet. Okay, we're ready. Now, look at this. External power meters are not showing anything. APU is up. Gen 1, 2, 3, 4, still nothing because the engines haven't been started. So before we start engines, I believe we also turn galley power off. So let's do that. And packs will turn them on their proper settings after the engines start. We'll just have one pack for now. Nothing else to turn on just yet. Now let's turn this electric hydraulic. For some reason it keeps going off. Don't know why, but anyways. Alright, we're ready for pushback. One thing to change I forgot to do, the speed, auto throttle speed on the autopilot should be V2 plus 10 knots. So V2 plus 10, so it should be not 146 but 156. Just a procedural thing. Okay. Altitude. Now altitude, technically you would put the first cleared altitude here. And that is for our procedure. In this case there are many restrictions. We're going to Delray, less than 3,000, less than 5,000. .SS you should be above 15,000. So 3,000, okay, this is really manual. I'm going to set it to 5,000 and then we'll go from there. Okay, before pushback, you can arm anti-skid now. I don't think it's to make a huge difference. Body ground steering. This makes your main gear turn also, not just your nose gear, all the main gears. So you turn easier. These guys also turn as you turn the nose gear. Makes it much easier to turn when you're taxiing. That's what I mean. So double checking everything else here. This is good. Open your stop valve cover. Fasten seat belts on. One last little text, the auto brake test.
Auto brake off.
Okay, auto brake. Another massive difference that would totally confuse you if I didn't tell you. It is not used in takeoff. There's no design of auto brake for rejected takeoff in the 747-200. It's only used for landing, and it shouldn't be in the off position. Disarm is okay, I would think, but off just totally like deactivates it. That's it. Now we're about to push back, so the red flashing light, the beacon, should be turned on. And that's pretty much it. Everything's already ready here. The clock we will start just before actual, when we're on the runway, just before doing the takeoff roll, just so you know. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna ask ready for pushback to plan our pushback. Whoa, what just happened here? Oh, it's very bad visibility. I think that's what just happened.
All right, Captain, got the directions. Let me know through the menu when you're ready.
Now, one thing I forgot, don't forget, close your cockpit door, especially these days, post 911, and lock it. It's usually locked even before 911 anyways, so. And lock is this guy, flight deck door release. It's showing open. Click it, light goes off. So only these two should be on. Ground crew call, we don't use that in the simulation, but in any case. Okay, so now we're ready. Let's just double check the brakes, because they sometimes are acting up and they don't release when they're supposed to be already released and so forth.
Parking brake released.
Okay, good.
Parking brake set. Parking brake released. Parking brake set. Parking brake released. Parking brake set. Parking brake released. Parking brake set.
Okay, whatever. It's really strange. Hold on. Brake pressure. We're gonna do this after. Brake pressure's good, actually. Yeah. All right, let's start.
Great news, Captain. Your tow's coming.
Okay, one other thing I'm gonna do while we're waiting is the runway heading and course. If we have to land again, we should set the courses for ILS landing. Runway heading was 251 for runway 24 left, and the two courses should also read the same runway heading for the signal, the ILS. Instrument landing system signal. Okay. And this, by the way, I set to INS because very soon after takeoff I start switching over to the inertial navigation system.
All right, looks like the doors and hatches are closed and we're ready to connect. Welcome aboard, Captain. Tow's connected, bypass pins inserted. Go and kill the parking brake when you're ready to go.
We're all ready, so here we go.
Parking brake released.
Here comes the pushback. Light 'em up.
Light them up means start your engines. So you can start the engines if you want. So, first things first. No, you don't need all 3 packs off to start engines. It's something I learned after a while after I got this plane actually. 1 pack can be on. It's fine. Everything else, bleed air has to be on. Trim air has to be on. Bleed air is on. Pack valves. Gasper is that little thing above your seat on the ceiling of the plane, you know, above you, where you turn, you adjust airflow and to move it towards you. I'm leaving that off because of the noise it makes, and here's the noise, by the way. You can see, it's quite noisy, so we don't want to listen to that for the entire duration of the flight. So, engines, overhead, start valve
Ready to start the engine.
on.
Ready for engine start.
Engine ignition has, each has 2 switches. You can use either one, system 1 or system 2. Now it's for ground start, not flight start. Flight start, FLT start, is for starting an engine mid-flight in the air if you have to stop it or it's stopped or whatever. Okay? So here we go, engine 1.
Starting engine 1.
Start valve open.
And then I view the N2 percentage here at 20. It tells you to light up.
Just about done here. Go ahead and set your parking brake.
Parking brake set.
And we're disconnecting the tow. Give me just a moment.
20% and 2.
There we go. They call
Fuel
out.
on. Light up.
They call out, which is very nice. They have a lot of call outs in this simulation, the plane. So it helps you a lot to work, especially all by yourself. So, and when the engine starts, exhaust gas temperature here goes up. Engine 1. That's engine 1, engine 2,
Starter off.
engine 3, engine 4, just so you know. Okay, so when this stabilizes, it calls
Engine
out
stabilized.
engine stabilized. I just did that now. So let's do engine 2. I'm going to use system 2 for this one.
Starting engine 2.
Start valve open.
N2 right here.
And we're disconnected. Signaling pin on the right. Take it easy and have a safe flight.
20% and 2.
Fuel on. Light up.
There's engine 2 revving up. Okay, now engine 3.
Starting engine 3.
Start valve open.
You see the start valve light go on in green right here. And it's revving up here, the N2, second stage.
20% and 2.
That's the second
Fuel
compression
on.
stage.
Light up.
Starter off. Engine stabilized.
Engine stabilized and
Starting
final.
engine 4.
Final engine.
Starter valve open.
Always try to follow same procedure here. Oil quantities, temperature. This one's just starting, so the oil temperature hasn't risen. See, these have risen into the green zone.
20% and 2.
These two haven't yet because they just started.
Fuel on. Light up.
And by the way, don't wait too long to open the fuel valve because it'll just cancel the start and you'll have to start again with the engine 4 or the engine starting process. Yeah, here we go, oil pressure. These are rising because these
Starter off.
3 and 4 haven't, they just started. You notice 1 and 2 are at a different temperature. Engine breather
Engine stabilized.
pressure also. So, that's all started now. And you can close the start valve, close the switch. Next step, turn on the runway turn off lights. Now you're wondering, what about the other lights? They don't have other lights. The 747-200 has only 2 side lights. There's no front light here for the, what do you call it, nose gear, nose light, taxi light as they call it. Okay. And by the way, don't ever try to arm your auto throttle. It'll start revving up right away. Okay. This is not the same plane at all as the 400 or the Dash 8. You don't. There's no such thing as arming a system. Okay, I can put this INS, but that's fine. I can do that later. So yeah, auto throttle immediately activates the engine revving the throttle. Okay. Now we're going to test, before we taxi, we're going to test flight surfaces. So flight surface test. You see here the spoilers. It's this we're looking at. Elevators, that guy. Rudder. And also the brakes, just so make sure they're working. There we go. We are now ready to taxi. Just double check. Oh, yeah, one more thing. Turn off the APU. Also, we have to, yeah, one more thing here. Generator, the bus generators, they have to be all connected. Otherwise, you're still running on the APU generators. Now you're connected. See? And APU generators automatically disconnect when you do that. So all these lights here in this section have to be off. Almost forgot, sorry about that. Okay. And APU, bleed air off. And split system breaker closed, meaning connected. And these are fine. We're going to now turn on the second of the packs, pack 3. Apparently you should wait a bit. You don't want to open them immediately one after the other. APU should apparently run about a minute or something before you shut it off. Something I read in the procedure again. And for 325 passengers, if you look at the configuration of the air conditioning in the Felis manual, aircraft manual, it's full, half. So that's what I'm doing here. Close. Hydraulics, almost forgot. Hydraulic air pumps on. There we go. And let's double check here. Fuel pumps are fine. APUs are off. Yep. These are off. Okay, we can turn off the APU now. I'm not going to wait necessarily the full amount, but okay. You notice nothing's stopped because the airplane's already connected to the main buses of the engines. Now, since I saved this manually also, I do saves at different stages of flight. Right when I'm ready to taxi, so that I don't lose any of all the work I've done. Apparently they say don't save until the engines are started, so it may not save properly, so I don't do that. Here we go. So I'm going to do this time much shorter instead of writing it out. Say taxi 1. I might save twice during taxi. Okay, so we're ready to taxi. Before you do that, for airports that are equipped, let me just set my transponder here. 27, yeah, that's fine. The transponder has to be set to transponder mode or exponder right here. That's for ground radar to detect you, as far as I understand. And before takeoff, we'll be switching it to TARA. The VHF radio is also set to 111.7, which is the frequency of the runway from where we're taking off. That would be runway 24 left. right there. Important to know that. And we're ready to taxi. You notice this is the rev right here.
Parking brake released.
Just enough to get you moving. You need about 40 or so N1. Then you can pull back on the throttles. So probably about 35. My taxi route's already laid out for me. Nice and neatly here in green line. As you can see, I marked my route because they have a new marker option, which is not new anymore. It's been around for maybe almost a year. Not sure. Navigraph charts, so it's pretty good. Now the trim you should be setting at this point. Probably could have done it before you left for taxi, started taxi I mean. 4.3. There. Flaps you can also test.
Flaps 30.
There's really nothing else to do during taxi except you might be communicating with air traffic control and so forth. So I'm gonna resume the video when I'm approaching the runway. Okay? See you there. Now we're almost there for takeoff. Just to show you a little bit of this gorgeous airport. By the way, this is the Mr. X version, 1.x of LAX, not the version 2 that just came out. Frame rates are very good, by the way. They really are. Give you an idea how good they are. Right here. For me, this is good. Huh? Over 30 frames per second is always ideal, or better, you know, for flight simming. It's quite smooth at 30 frames per second. So we're almost there. Now we're gonna turn here. By the way, this is your ground speed, just so you see it. That will be the distance to the next DME, or next point. In this case, we don't have one yet. When you're flying in flight. Alright, so stop at the line. Make sure you're in the habit of stopping before these lines when you're taxiing. This prepares you for not only real world but also online flying, VATSIM, IVEO, etc. You never get on the runway ever without getting permission from the ATC. I'm sure some of you already know that, but I just want to mention just to be sure. Okay, now I'm arming a few things in the auto throttle. For takeoff, outbound, I'm putting inbound too, but normally it's probably just outbound. Anti-skids on, ground steering is still armed for now. This is set to takeoff dry. TOD is not top of descent. Okay, this is now set to TARA, transponder, and also, by the way, you'd want to set this to some number you like. Okay, that's not terribly important for us. This code is assigned to you by clearance delivery at an airport. Whatever they give you, you put in here. No exceptions. You can probably change transponder codes in certain cases, I believe, but that's about it. Okay, so now I think you can actually set this before takeoff, which is kind of interesting. Okay. Last check. Lights. APU's off. I believe galley power is also off before takeoff. Yeah. Now. Actually. No, I'm going to turn it on. Not galley. Packs are turned off if you need more power, but I don't. This is fine, that's fine. Hydraulics are fine. You also, if you're crossing a runway, you have to get permission at an airport and you're taxiing. Just so you're aware, in case you didn't know. Now, flaps are going to be 20.
Flaps 20.
There we go. I'm setting them now. I didn't set it at taxi. I just have a tendency to wait till I'm almost at the runway to set flaps, not before I start taxiing. This was an old habit I developed, just so you know, that aircraft engineers are worried that flaps could, well, flop around in the bumps while you're taxiing and possibly get worn out, but I don't know, it's just a habit I had started developing. So just as I'm approaching the runway, as I'm setting transponder to on and TARA and the lights on, strobe on, I set the flaps. Okay, so two last things that I must do before I take off, though this could be technically considered maybe a takeoff procedure, but engine ignition should be all set, system 1 and system 2 for all 4 engines to flight start. In case there's a stall or there's a problem, turbulence, this is apparently done ahead of time. With the other planes I've flown, even the 737-800, this is done optionally if there's heavy turbulence or some other reason, usually that kind of stuff. One last thing to do before takeoff roll is start your clock in the cockpit. There it goes. This times your actual flight time. So this is where this video ends, and we're now going to do the takeoff, and that'll be a different video.